Welcome to Break Free from Corporate, the only podcast dedicated to bringing you business success secrets from leading entrepreneurs with one thing in common. They left the corporate world, became their own boss, and are now living incredible lives. To access previous and all future episodes, visit breakfreefromcorporate.com and subscribe today.
Well, hi everyone, this is Gavin Sequeira here, founder of Break Free from Corporate, and welcome to another exciting episode on our podcast. And today I've got a really special guest all the way from London in the United Kingdom. Her name is Kay Suthar, and I'm going to introduce her, but I just want to make sure she's with us. Kay, are you on the line with us?
I am, yes, I'm here.
Wonderful. Okay, great. So Kay, I'm really excited to have you on, and I'm just going to tell our audience a little bit about you. Guys, Kay is someone I just came in touch with very recently, and she's done some remarkable things in her short time on this planet. She is firstly, she comes from the United Kingdom. She is a success coach, and she does a lot of business strategy. She's an award-winning author and speaker, and she has, prior to that, done an enormous amount of work with kids. I believe you were a youth worker for deaf kids. Kay, I read that somewhere in your profile. You've been a police officer, and so you've had a big career in that area. You suffered through a lot of health challenges and you overcame that. And you're doing all these amazing things now, using the skills you had from running campaigns and events and, turning businesses around and things like that. And so I know that your life has led you into a really exciting area now. And what I really want to get into is, how did it start? Like, how did that process start? If you could take us back to, what you were doing from your early days, working for someone else, working in maybe corporate or one of those type of jobs, and how that sort of evolved to where you are now.
Oh my goodness. First of all, Gavin, thank you for having me on your show. I'm so excited to be here.
You're very welcome.
And oh God, it's all right. It started really when I was in my 20s, when I was going from job to job to job to job, right?
Yeah.
And each one being completely different to the other. I left uni where I studied law and criminology and decided, okay, let me go and see what law is all about, and kind of worked in magistrates court for a little while. Realized that wasn't for me. Then decided to go and work with youth, deaf youth, and did sign language with them and supported them.
Awesome.
Then became a hairdresser, became an MMA fighter, became a police officer.
That's right.
Went into politics. And so it was just really strange how things worked out. But one of the things that I realized about myself is that I'm able to adapt very, very quickly to anything around me.
Mm-hmm.
Right, which is why I was able to jump from one thing to another that was so different to each other, and just get on with it. And what had happened is I also realized that I'm someone that gets bored very quickly. I'm like, okay, I know how to do this skill. What's next?
Yeah.
Right. And I wasn't about to wait for that promotion to hopefully maybe get it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because I was like, okay, I need to do something different now. I'm bored.
Yeah.
And so I would just jump to something else and do that thing, learn how to do that, all right, and then jump to something else. And so where I learned that I was very adaptable around my surroundings and was able to just get straight into it and learn how to do things on the job. And a lot of the things that I did do, I had no qualifications or experience. I learned on the job.
Yeah, great.
And so, God, it came to really health issues. And when I was an MMA fighter, I had a health issue, ended up in hospital, couldn't move my neck, was on so many steroids, and basically was told if I carry on doing this, then there's going to be a huge issue because already my spine wasn't aligned. Right?
Oh, wow. Yep.
Yes. And so I was like, oh my goodness, okay, I've got to quit this. Went into policing, was doing that for several years, enjoyed it, and then
so let me get this right straight. You were a police officer, but a trained MMA fighter.
Correct.
So if anyone saw you in the street and they messed with you, you wouldn't just handcuff them, you'd take them out.
That's right. Oh my goodness. And the funny thing is, you can't see on a digital platform. Mm-hmm. But when you see me, you would never think it because I'm like 4'11".
I was going to say, you sound like you're 7 foot tall, but But you probably come across as someone that's more than just, what you appear to be.
Right.
Mm.
And so, I love it when people judge a book by its cover, because then they get a shock, And and so, yeah, then I became a police officer. I had health issues there where I woke up one morning, went to bed the night before completely fine, jumped in the shower that morning. As soon as the hot water touched my skin, it just started burning.
Oh,
So
wow.
I jumped out, so look straight into the mirror and was like, what's going on here? And found out my entire body had come out in a rash.
Oh.
And so I was like, holy crap, what's going on here? Went to the hospital, had loads of tests done. And I remember waiting in the consultation room for my doctor to come in to give me my results. And as he came in, he walked in, he opened the door, and he looked straight at me and he goes to me, you were lucky to get here when you did.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy crap, what do you mean? And he goes, well, if you didn't get here when you did, your throat would have closed up.
You're joking. Wow.
No. Right? And I was like, well, how did this happen? I was fine the night before. And he goes, well, this type of rash is brought on by your body being overly stressed.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. And so I didn't realize how much stress emotionally, mentally, physically my role as a police officer was having on me. Right? Or I was probably in denial or whatever it was. And then at that point, I was like, oh, God, I can't carry on doing this either. So every time I found something, I was like, right, this is going to be my career. This is what I'm going to be doing, right? Something happened, and it always was a health issue that kind of redirected me to do something else. Yeah. And so I left the police officer role, and I was like, people keep going on about, owning your own business and entrepreneurship. And I was like, what does that actually mean? What is real business, right? And so this is when I started my entrepreneurial journey and decided to look into what real business means. And at that point, I realized that I wanted to be in a completely different environment than as a police officer, because it's a very negative environment to be in, right?
Yeah.
So the only positive thing about it is, catching the bad guys, and that isn't a very positive thing anyway, because you don't really want to be catching bad guys, No,
so well, you're surrounded in that constant space of negative kind of vibes, really, isn't it? Like crime and all of that.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. And so I was like, I would love to get into, being involved in live events, right?
Okay.
And I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? Again, people around me were telling me, you're nuts. You don't have no qualifications. You don't have no experience in live events. There's no one in hell that's going to employ you to do live events. So I was like, well, this is really what I want to do. And you know what? It wasn't just doing local live events. I was like, I'm going to do live events. I'm going to be the best at it. And I'm going to be international. Right? That was my goal.
Great goal.
And so people were like, okay, you're nuts. You're living in a dream world. That never is going to happen. And I remember I went to my first seminar. It was a Dr. DeMartini seminar from The Secret.
Oh, he's great. I love Dr. DeMartini.
Right? Isn't he awesome?
He's awesome.
It was my fitness trainer that said to me, why don't you come down? Let's go and see Dr. DeMartini. And I was like, what kind of seminar event is this? She was like, just come down. So I was like, all right, fine, let's go. And then we got there, and my friend, my trainer said to me, I hope you don't mind, I brought another friend with me. And I'm like, no, more the merrier. And she worked for a company that was starting to do live events. So me and her started talking, and she was, asking me questions to what is it that you want to do, what you're passionate about, and things like this. And she goes to me, well, I think that you'll be really, really good joining our team doing live events. They're just getting started.
Oh, that's
And I'm like, I know. I was like, whoa. She was like, let me take your number and I'll give you a call in a week or so. And honestly, Gavin, I was at a point where I was thinking, things like this don't happen. People don't just, out of the blue offer you a job. It doesn't happen. I was like, I'm never going to hear from them again.
Yeah.
A week later, she gave me a call and she goes, oh, we've got an event in London. Why don't you come down and meet the team?
Cool.
And I was like, really? She was like, yeah. And I was like, well, I guess I've got nothing to lose. Let me come down. I went down there, and the company was an American company. So majority of the team were all Americans. They all flew
Yeah.
down for this event. And I spoke to management team, spoke to the rest of the team there. I was there talking to them for 4 hours, talking about British soaps.
Oh, that's cool. They're like,
Which
we don't
apparently
care what she does on the team, but she's just cool. She knows stuff.
right. And apparently they love British soaps and all of this. So we got into that conversation. And then they said to me, when can you start? And I'm like, really? And they were like, yeah, when can you start? I'm like, I can start as soon as possible. But you do realize I don't have any qualifications or experience. I have no idea how this works. And they were like, well, are you willing to learn? And I'm like, yeah, of course I am. They go, well, that's all we need to know.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's when that kind of started. And I was like, holy crap, this is happening. And then when I kind of immersed myself in the whole events kind of industry seminar, and I saw these speakers going up on stage, and I realized how events logistics were, and the back end sales and all of this, I was learning real life business.
Yeah, you were.
Right? And I was doing this for a number of years, and I remember the manager saying to me, oh, what are you doing in 2 days? And I said to him, well, I've got nothing planned. He goes, great, because I need your bags packed. You're flying to Malaysia. That's going to be your first event.
Cool. There you go.
Right. And so that's how that started. And then I just kind of gradually became the events manager. Then I wanted to learn how to do sales, started front end sales, then back end sales, became the #1 closer in the company. And then was asked to go fly to Costa Rica because this is where the CEO bought his resort for his mastermind events. So people were paying like $60,000 plus to be at these mastermind events. So they weren't small events.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Like to be, by the beach, pool, palm trees, coconuts, amazing. Why the hell wouldn't I go?
Yeah.
And then plus to have my apartment, my flights, my food, my water, everything paid for. Right? And then getting paid on top, I was like, things could not get any better. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then, Gavin, when things go so right and it's all perfect, there's going to be a spanner in the works somewhere.
It has to be. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for that moment. So
And so it happened. I was in Costa Rica for 3 weeks, and all of a sudden, the company shut down.
Oh, that's a shame. That's a shame.
Yes. The company shut down. All of a sudden, I was evicted from my apartment. I had no food. I had no water. And I'm there thinking to myself, holy crap, I'm homeless. How the hell?
It sounds like a complete backflip, doesn't it?
It was. It totally was. And I did not see it coming. No idea. And so as I'm sitting there now, I'll tell you something, Gavin, I was laughing to myself because I was like, this is such a ridiculous situation to be in.
Yeah.
And as I looked across the room and I could see my co-workers, like they were stressing out, they were crying, pulling out their hair, they didn't know what to do, stressed out. And I couldn't stop laughing to myself. And the reason for that is because I guess one of my superpowers is being able to see things that most people can't. And having that different perspective. And at that point, I was like, hold on a second. When you think about the Tony Robbins of the world, Les Browns of the world, they were all homeless at one point.
Yeah.
Now they're multi-millionaires. So to me, I was like, holy crap, I'm homeless. That means I'm going to be a multi-millionaire. It's happening, right?
You're on the right path. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So because I had that perspective, I was able to think outside the box, get creative, and find a solution to get me out of the situation. If I was stuck in the overwhelm and the emotion, the negative emotion, I'll probably still be there, Gavin.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, like a lot of the people that listen to this podcast, Kay, they, some of them are stuck in a little bit of overwhelm. Some of them are stuck in their jobs, like they might not be homeless, but maybe if they knew they could be homeless and then be a multimillionaire, they would take that path, right? But they're stuck in their jobs and they're not sure what the next move is and can I do it? And is it too risky? And what will my friends think? And what will my family think? And because I know when I got out of the corporate world many years ago and started to write a book and then create a program, and I was doing all these alternative things, I had people asking me, Gavin, are you okay? Like, is everything all right? Like, like when are you going to get a job? Are you working? Are you able to pay the rent? Are you like, because people just they didn't see things the way I saw things. They weren't, they had a completely different outlook on life, perspective. So I get where you're coming from.
So when I was going job to job, it was exactly that. People were telling me, okay, like, don't you think you should just find one job, stick it out, stay there, retire, and then live your life? And I'm like, something about that doesn't sound right. Now, I want to live it right now. I don't know what's going to happen when I'm 60, 65 when I retire. Exactly. So, it just was really backwards to me. Mm-hmm. And so anyway, I continued, and so I was in Costa Rica thinking, all right, I've got to figure out a way to get out of this. And so what I realized is even the main company was shut down. The resort itself was a separate entity, was set up as a separate entity, but this main company was feeding the clients in. But now this main company shut down, the resort is still there, they've still got bills to pay, they've still got staff to pay, but they've got no money coming in. Yeah. And so I'm like, well, I've learned so much about sales, about marketing, promoting, branding, bringing leads in and all this stuff. So I went to the resort manager and said, let me show you how to do this. Let me, bring people in for you. But in return, I need shelter, food, and water, right? And I'm not being funny, but this is a resort. It's not got no clients, but you got loads of beds, right? So they agreed. They were like, okay, let's do this because we still got bills to pay. We need to bring clients in. And so as I showed them how to do this and bring clients in, I was able to get my basic needs met. And then I realized, hold on a second, on the coast, I can then go to all the different restaurants, the other hotels, and show them the same thing, raise the money to be able to get a flight out of Costa Rica, and kind of go back to normality. And that's what I did. But what the biggest thing that I learned from that is, in order to help yourself, you've got to be able to help others. Yeah, that's a really, really good one. I love that. Right. And so after that, I was like, right, okay, I've learned so much about business. I've then gone and helped other businesses in Australia, actually, and helping them expand and build their event sector in their business. And there was one company in Australia that was doing really well, was making like $1 million in a year. But he knew he could do more. He wanted to expand. He wanted to scale. And so this is where we implemented a lot more events, got new teams, trained them up, changed a kind of structure on how they did sales in the back of the room, and managed to then help him generate $1 million within 4 months rather than a year, and then tripled his money in that year. That's fantastic. That's awesome. Yeah, and then I'm like, holy crap, why am I not doing this for myself? Well, yeah, I mean, see, the thing is, we're really good at helping other people, aren't we? Yes. Yes. We are. Yeah. And so this is where I kind of built the company Uncensored Society, where I do help people on different business strategies, digital events, live events, not so much because of the pandemic. That has to kind of really slow down. Yeah. But digital events, and then now podcasting as well. That's right. And that's really how we've come together. And so you mentioned about Uncensored Society. Talk to us about, what does that mean, and why did you come up with that concept? Or how, is that the umbrella of what you do? Right, yes. So what I learned through live events and coming across so many, consultants and coaches and all of that good stuff is that there was a gap in the market. And what that gap was is that there's too many coaches and consultants out there tapping their clients on the shoulder and telling them it's going to be okay. Well, guess what, Gavin? It's not going to be okay unless they do something about it, right? Mm-hmm. And so 100%. I've had many coaches and mentors over the years. I still have them right now. And I've learned those coaches that got in my face and told me to get my head out of my ass was where I progressed the most.
Yeah.
So really where Uncensored Society comes from is the way I do my coaching and how I've learned through other coaches and mentors that I've had, and really keeping people accountable and I won't accept any excuses. And if you're that person that keeps giving me different excuses why you can't do this, etc., then you know what? You're not here to be on my program. I'm not the coach for you. Go and find somebody else. Because if you're messing up and you're not keeping on track, then I'm going to tell you about it. And you may even cry at some point, right? But I'm not going to tell you it's going to be okay when it's not. I'm going to be real with you. It's going to be raw. I'm going to be in your face. It's going to happen. But at the end of the day, I'm looking for results. That's why people come to me, to get those results. But you've got to put your part into this as well. And if you're not willing to do that, if you're not determined, committed, making, a life that you and your family deserve, then you don't need to be here. And that's where Uncensored Society came from, because it's completely uncensored.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. And so I guess a lot of people who are listening to this, I know, okay, like I resonate with what you're saying, because I come in touch with a lot of people. I talk to them. They tell me all the things that they want to do and that they're going to do. And then when the time comes for them to make a decision to take that first step to do something about it, they're like, oh, well, the excuses come out. Or,
Right.
and it's like, you wouldn't believe where these excuses come out from. And suddenly it's like, oh, but I'm investing in this property and I'm doing this. And it's like, we never talked about that before, but suddenly these things they've just materialized, and it's like, that's fantastic. So does that mean, like what you're saying is no longer important? And then they're like, oh, look, you know what? Like, I'll have to come back to it. It's like they've done a backflip on themselves. And it's quite, look, it's funny in a way, but it's the vast majority of people I deal with, because I think maybe society has trained us to just, almost be like sheep, follow the crowd, do one thing, and don't upset the apple cart. And really, we all have these little brief flickers in our mind that says, hey, what about this? And what about that? And what if I could do this? And you get all excited, you talk to someone about it, and then someone goes, hey, you can do it. If you just take these steps. And that's when the reality hits them. It's like, I don't know if I'm ready for that change, or I don't know if I'm ready for success, or maybe I'm afraid of failing, or things like that. So for people like that are listening, what would you say to them that are at this crossroads where they kind of got that glimmer of, oh, what if? And they also have this other voice at the back of their head saying, no, you can't do that, or you shouldn't look at that, or, all these negative thoughts. What would you say to them?
Oh my goodness. So, getting out your comfort zone is never going to be easy. Doing something that you're not sure about isn't going to be easy. You're going to have those doubts in your head, but you're never going to know whether it's going to work out, it's not going to work out, unless you do it. All those what ifs are there, but they're just stories playing in your mind. Just do it, get it done. We'll see if it works. If it doesn't work, let's make those tweaks. But if you've got a coach there for you, they're going to be helping you on your journey as well. You're not on your own. So they're going to be telling you, right, okay, this is not going to work, or this is going to work, or we need to tweak this section. So it's scarier when you're doing it on your own. When you've got a coach and there's a set, plan, steps that you need to follow, then it becomes a lot easier. Then it's just down to you to make sure you get it done. You want to be giving yourself excuses, and you don't want to get stuff done, and you're going to be scared. And if you're going to be living in that state continuously, then you're not going to get anywhere. Those dreams are only going to be dreams. They only become real when you put action behind it.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, right? And so if you're going to continuously get scared of doing something new, then honestly, I'm not there to fight it for you. I'm there to work with you. And I'm going to tell you to go stick with your 9-to-5 job if you're not willing to get out of that state.
Yeah. And, when you said earlier, there's a lot of coaches out there, or people that will say, look, everything's going to be all right and you can do it. I guess at the end of the day, the sad reality of life is not everyone is going to make the changes possible in their lives that they want. I mean, out of, let's say, 100 people, maybe 90% of them are not really going to change too much in their life. They're not really going to upset the apple cart too much. They're not going to be bold and do things, against the grain and all of that. But there will be that 10% that will. Maybe it's a little higher. I don't know. But
Right.
at the end of the day, if you're a coach or a consultant or someone that's out there working, one of the things I learned from one of my mentors really, really early on was work with the willing. Work with the people that want to do
Right.
it. Don't try and
Exactly.
convince people,
Right.
because otherwise it's like a salesperson trying to convince someone to buy their product. If they don't want it, they don't want it.
No, exactly. And so this is it. I'm not here to convince anyone. You're not here to convince anyone. This is an opportunity that's been presented to you. It's up to you whether you want to take it with both hands and run with it. If you don't, that's fine. And if you do, that's great too.
Yeah.
But yeah, as coaches, consultants, we are never here to convince. This is completely down to you. It is your journey. It is your life. And whatever you put into it is the results you're going to get out of it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, I mean, that's probably one of the hardest lessons to learn when you're in sales and when you're in consulting and coaching and all of that, which is, you're not there to convince people. You're there to just say, hey, I'm here to help you. If you want the help, you got to make that change. And what's the worst that could happen? In your case, you became homeless, right? But that's when you had your epiphany. Literally, like sometimes you've got to go through that dark tunnel to come out the other end and appreciate the bright light. But if you live in a comfort zone your whole life, like you'll never know.
No, and Gavin, this is where I came up with the saying that failing doesn't make you a failure.
Yeah.
Right? You have to fail. You've got to fail as many times as possible and fail big. Because the bigger the lesson, right? I guarantee you're never going to make that mistake again. You think I'm going to be homeless again? It's not going to happen. Right? It's not going to happen ever.
Yeah.
And so you learn from those mistakes. You learn, okay, this didn't quite work out for me. You're never going to do that again. And so make sure you fail as many times as possible, because that means you're a step towards being successful, right?
Yeah.
You know what doesn't work for you, but you're still trying to figure out, okay, what actually does. So earlier this year, I decided, this is just an example. I don't mean to brag or anything like that. It's
That's
just
okay.
purely for example. I decided, right, I'm going to promote the hell out of Uncensored Society. There's not live events going on because of the pandemic. So I was like, I'm going to use the digital platform podcasts. And so I was like, right, how am I going to get podcasters to actually say yes to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started off, and I'm not going to lie to you, everyone was saying no. And I'm like, what is going on? I can't get on any podcast. And so I made some tweaks, I made some changes. I didn't give up, because I knew there was a way of doing it. I just had to figure it out. I didn't give up.
That's
and
the secret.
So, right. And then I made some tweaks and changes, and oh my goodness, Gavin, it blew up. Like in a matter of 60 days, 2 months, I managed to get myself booked on 100 podcasts, 100 different podcasts, right? Insane. But if I gave up, in the beginning where people were saying no, I would never have seen that.
Yeah.
And so you got to make sure you're persistent and you keep going, you make those changes. Things aren't going to happen click of a finger overnight. It's just keeping at it. And so now I knew what didn't work, and now I know what works. And now I've created another part of my business where I actually put people on different podcasts. I find them podcasters to put on there, right? Whatever the niche is. But that wouldn't have happened if I gave up in the beginning. Like, you never know what's going to transpire from just you experimenting and putting yourself out there and figuring out what works and what doesn't work.
That's a really good point, because sometimes people say to me, oh, Gavin, look, I really want to do something. I'm sick of my job. I don't like where I'm working. I've been here for so many years. And so I tell them, well, what would you like to do? And they're like, oh, I don't even know where to start. And so I said, just start somewhere. Like, what do you like doing? And I mean, it sounds really silly, because when you ask people, what are you passionate about? I mean, it's a really vague sort of a question. And sometimes people go, I like helping people. That's great. But so let's break it down a bit more. But I find you need to take that first step so that you can see one step further. Like I think it was one of my mentors who said, if you take one step in front of yourself, you can see that one step further. which
Right.
it sounds really basic, but if you didn't take that one step, you're pretty much stuck where you are. You can't see, the horizon is at the same level it was before. If you take 10 steps, you're now 10 steps further than you were before. And you don't know whether those steps are going to lead you in the right direction, but at least you're moving. And it might, like you said, it might lead to something, or it'll cause you to make a choice or a life decision. But that's good, because now you're taking action, you're making decisions, things are changing, whereas before things weren't.
Exactly. You start seeing progress, and it is just about just taking a day at a time and just keep moving and making sure you have that momentum, right? Once you start building that momentum, that's when you're going to start seeing things transpire. It might not be, what you planned, but things don't always work out the way people plan it, right? I mean, look at the pandemic. No one saw that coming. And it's a matter of just being able to adapt. And there's going to be continuous things that's going to be thrown at you in business and in life, right? That you're not going to expect to happen, that you're expecting to happen, but yet they've happened. And what do? We don't just give up on life, right? We got to get on with it. That's exactly what business is like. And so learning that, you have to adapt to the world, because the world isn't going to adapt to us, right? And just keep pushing forward. That's how you're going to be able to learn, to progress, to build your business, to scale it, and get creative, right? Start thinking outside the box. And don't be one of those people that, I've been doing this business for 10 years. This is how I've been doing it, and I'm not going to change it. Because there's something, a spanner's going to come throwing at you. It's not going to work anymore. Things change. Things evolve. I mean, when we start looking at Facebook ads and algorithms, they continuously change. They weren't the same as it was.
That's
right. They weren't the same as they were last year or even yesterday. And so we got to constantly get creative, be ahead of the game, and think of ways of helping people a lot more. Where are they stuck? Where are they frustrated? Where's the overwhelm? What can you do to bring a solution to them, right? And so when you're in your business, that never, ever stops. Don't think, I've got my program, and I've got this, I've got my website set up, that's it, I'm done, I'm good, I don't have to do anything again. No, every day there's going to be something going on, something that you can better your service, your product, and better the results for your clients.
Yeah, well, that's it. Because if you're in the business of helping other people and helping them make changes in their life, if you're not making changes yourself, what's going to happen is you're going to get stale, and then people are going to see that, and you're eventually going to dwindle down. Like, it's not going to grow and thrive. And so I think that's really, really good advice, Kay. When I can see that, one of the things you also did was you wrote a book. Now, when was that, and what was the name of that book?
Oh, good. So the book that I published was in 2016. It's called Never Judge a Book by Its Cover. And it actually does explain the journey that I took from when I was younger, with people telling me that, I'm living in a daydream, that it's never going to work out. Because everything that I was doing was going against the grain with everyone else that around me was doing. And so it kind of talks about the relationships I've had with my parents, with peers, health issues, all that good stuff. And really, I wrote this book about just as a preventative measure for people. Because if there's a point where people feel like they're in the rut, or they're going down a path that they're not quite happy with, I wrote this book to show people what can happen, right, if you continue down that path of darkness, and what the changes can happen if you decided that you no longer want to do that, and that you do have a choice. Everybody has a choice. When people come up to me that, I had no choice but to do this, I had no choice but to do that.
You always have a choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You always have a choice. And if you choose to go down a path that you're not happy and continue with it, and live life for other people rather than yourself, you're never going to find happiness in what you do. And you're going to be miserable. And that could lead to really devastating situations, being suicidal and things like that. Because I know that's the road that I was going down for a little while in my younger years, where I just wanted my life to be over. Yeah. And it happens. And so you can definitely get yourself out of that situation, out of that mental state. It just means making a choice of doing something different than the road that you are down. And
Well, I
so
think,
that.
yeah, sorry, I
Sorry.
was just going to say, I think that's actually really good advice, just what you just said then, because just the fact that if people listening to this know that they have a choice when they don't think they have a choice can be a very uplifting sort of a message, because a lot of people might be looking right now at the way the world is and the state of affairs and how things are panning out with work and family and blah, blah, blah. And they might just go, look, I'm just stuck. I just don't have a choice. You know, it's got to keep going. But what you're saying is you have a choice everywhere you look. Literally every aspect of your life is a choice.
That's right.
It's either a choice you made in the past, but it certainly doesn't have to stop you from doing things in the future.
No, there's light at the other end of the tunnel. It's up to you whether you want to go towards or walk towards that light. And I don't mean that as in death, because that sounds like death right now.
It does. Walk towards the light.
But I mean,
Yep.
you know, just changing your life to be a lot more positive, to be a happier person. Or if you want to stay in that darkness, you know, and be miserable. But yeah, you have the choices to, you know, decide on the people that you want around you. Is it working for you? Isn't it working for you? Do you need to change your circle of friends? What's going on? Because a lot of the time when I was younger, people kept telling me I'm weird. You're so weird. The thing that you do is weird. What you say is weird. The way you think is weird. And then I realized it wasn't the fact that I was weird. It was because I was surrounded by a circle of people that just weren't like me.
They
were completely opposite.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And so when I found the friends that were like me, all of a sudden I wasn't weird. I was part of them. I was one of them.
Yeah. You hadn't found your tribe.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so Never Judge a Book by Its Cover was really all about the things that, you know what, even though people are telling you your circle around you is complete opposite, you can make a choice to continue doing what you want to do rather than living life for somebody else and doing what they think that you should be doing. And it's funny because after so many years, when people were telling me, you know, it's basically insane, you're crazy, you shouldn't be living life like that. Now they're asking me, how the hell
did you do it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and look, if you look at any of the famous inventors or any of the famous entrepreneurs and, you know, just anyone who was a game changer in society, at the beginning, they were all outcasted. They were all, you know, ostracized. They were, you know, people thought they were crazy. I mean, people thought Leonardo da Vinci was crazy. People thought right. Galileo, the guy who said the world was round and circumnavigated the world, and he said, "Oh well, the world is round; it's not flat." And people thought he was crazy. You know, people thought Jesus was crazy. People thought, I mean, when you think of like some really big figures out there, people thought Mahatma Gandhi was crazy. People thought Mandela was crazy.
Right.
So you're in pretty good company. If people call you crazy, I would actually think, I would actually go, you know what? Hey, that's good. That's a compliment. It's like being homeless, thinking, well, that means I'm going to be a multimillionaire.
Right. Exactly.
You're on the right path.
So when people tell me I'm weird, I was like, well, yeah, who wants to be normal?
Or just say thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. So you wrote this book. Now, is this what led to you receiving a letter from the Queen of England? Because I saw that somewhere and I'm like, tell me about that. That's amazing.
So, oh my goodness. So I wrote to several different people like Ellen DeGeneres, Oprah Winfrey, Steve Harvey, and a letter to the Queen. And I was like, oh my God, am I going to get a response? Am I going to hear from them? And you know what? About 4 months passed and I didn't hear from anyone.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, I got a letter through the door and it looked really official. It had like the royal stamp on there. And I'm like, oh my goodness, what is this? I opened it up and found that I got a letter from the Queen congratulating me on my book and my journey, and that she's got a copy of my book and she's placed it in the private royal library. And I'm like, holy
whoa,
crap.
That's cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of like, I was looking for something that made me stand out compared to everybody else, right? That one thing. And I guess that one thing was it. My book is in the private royal library. Like, I don't know how many other people
Not many people
have got the book.
Yep.
Right. You know, because there's so many people that the number one best-selling, international bestseller, number one on Amazon, this, that, the other. But that was the one thing that I was able to market and let people know the Queen has my book. How freaking amazing is that, right?
It is pretty amazing.
So
yeah.
that was really shocking because when I got that letter, first of all, I thought it was a prank.
Yeah.
Is someone pranking me here? But when I actually analyzed the piece of paper and realized it had the royal emblem embossed into the paper, it wasn't any normal A4 piece of paper.
Yeah.
You know, and it had the Buckingham Palace stamp on there. I was like, okay, this is official. This is legit. This is freaking amazing. The only thing that I was really upset about is that the Queen of England spelt my name wrong.
Oh, did she? Oh, no.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? One day you can take it up with her. You go, look.
I know.
I love your work, but I've got a bone to pick with you. You know? Yeah, but again, the reason I acknowledge that part of your story as well is because even something like that took determination and courage for you to write to these people to get out of your comfort zone so that you could be seen and heard by people who otherwise might not have heard of you. You know, and that's it's just the 1% or less than that of, you know, doing something different that other people won't do. And there's plenty of bestsellers out there. There's people who've made millions of dollars selling their books, but can't say they've had that kind of recognition, for example. You know,
exactly. And I'll tell you something. When I was doing that and I told my parents, they were looking at me. They were like, "You're mad.
Yeah.
They're not going to reply to you. You're insane. Why would they? Like, they don't know you." And then when I got that letter from the Queen, my mom's mouth dropped. She's like, "What? Are you kidding me?" I was like, "No, look, it's real." And she was like, "Oh my goodness," you know. And then I guess ever since then, my parents don't tell me what not to do and what to do anymore.
They're like,
because
go for it, just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
The crazier
you know?
the idea, go for it.
Yeah, and I've got friends around that, you know, tell me that, oh my God, your life is like a movie. And I'm like, yeah, and I created it. I'm the director of it.
I like
right?
that. Yes.
And I mean, life can be whatever you want it to be, but
yeah, I quite often tell people, look, you're ultimately, like, you might be wanting to start your own business, but you're already in a business. Your life is your business.
That's right.
You know, you earn money, you spend money, you work out how you're going to spend your day. You're in charge of your time. You interact with other people. You're constantly selling. You may not think you're a salesperson, but you're constantly selling. You know, the minute you talk to someone, you're either receiving an idea from them or you're passing on an idea. One way or the other, information is being shared. So you're going through all these interactions, and if you actually analyze it, you are conducting business every day, aren't you?
It's true, definitely.
So why not get good at it? Get good at it and have results, because even in your corporate job, you would have had targets, KPIs, you know, sales targets, and if you do well, you get rewarded. If you don't do well, you have to do better, and all of that. If you're an MMA fighter, if you don't practice, you'll get, you know, kicked around the court, won't you? Or
That's
the ring.
Right. You would.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I like the fact that you mentioned time. You know, you deal with your own time, you manage your own time, and you know, you do the things that I guess you feel is important.
Yeah.
And there's this so I'll go asking people, you know, what 3 main commodities do you think are the most valuable?
Yeah.
Right? And people say to me, well, number 1 is time. Time is the most valuable commodity. And I'm like, well, why is that? And they say, because once time's gone, you can never, ever get it back. I'm like, well, yeah, that's true. So I've got 3 commodities, and that's time, money, and change.
Okay.
And every time people say to me, time is the number 1, and I say to them, no, that's incorrect. Time isn't the number 1. And they're like, well, how can you say that? I go, well, let's think about it. I go, you live in the US, I live in the UK, but do either of us have more time than the other? Or do we have the exact same time in a day? Right? Yeah. And they go, no, we have the exact same time. I go, no matter where you live on the planet, in the world, right? In Australia, New Zealand, US, Canada, UK, wherever it is, every single one of us has the exact same time in a day. So why is it that some people can make $100,000 in a day and you get other people that make $100 in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I say to them, it's because change of habits. Change is the most valuable commodity people have, because it's the change of habits. When you realize what's working for you and what isn't working for you, and you change those habits, that's what's going to make you successful in business and in life. If you're not willing to change your habits, then nothing in your life is going to change for you either.
That's a really good point. So change would almost be that number one commodity, or it's almost if you can tweak that and you can master change, you can have more time freedom, more financial freedom in your life.
Exactly. Yeah, you can make your life be whatever you want it to be, as long as you're willing to change those habits. And so with some of my clients, recently, they've been telling me, oh, I don't have time to do this and I don't have time to do that. And when I sat down with them and we were pen to paper figuring out, okay, where is the time being spent? And they realized that, oh my goodness, each day I'm spending 6 hours on Netflix. Holy crap. That's not a habit that's going to serve you, your business, or your family, right? Yeah. And so being aware of those habits that no longer serve you and being able to then tweak and change them to make sure it benefits you and you're using your time productively, that's when you're going to start seeing those changes.
Yeah, completely agree. And you know what? Sometimes it can just be a case of one step at a time. No one's saying if you're spending 6 hours on Netflix a day, okay, it might be pretty hard to cut it down to zero, but even if you dropped an hour from that, that's an hour a day that you could put towards something else. You could read, you could listen to something, you could watch something, you could learn. And by learning, you start growing. And I tell people, the minute you start growing, everything around you starts growing. If you started a business, if you can personally grow, your business will grow. If you grow, you'll get better at your sport. So you've got to constantly water the mind. You've got to grow constantly. So that's actually really good advice. Like trying to find the time in the day. It's not an excuse that we don't have time.
No, it isn't. You can find time. You always find that if you're determined enough and you want to put the work in and you want to get those results that you've been dreaming about, you will find the time.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes it does mean that you gotta kind of compromise and. All right, your friends are constantly going down the pub and having a drink. Well, maybe one day you don't, and you sit at home and actually work on your business and yourself. You got to be able to compromise on, what needs to happen and what you want.
It's funny. I remember reading a quote or listening to a quote by Arnold Schwarzenegger, the famous movie actor. Now I bring him up as an example quite a bit because everything he ever tried to do, he wanted to be the best in the world at. Right. And he actually succeeded in all of it. When he was a bodybuilder, he saw himself as the best in the world. And he did. He became Mr. Olympian. Then he went into the acting business. And even though he had the handicap of not having the best accent and, all these funny things, and he built like a rock, he still was able to become one of the most successful actors of his day. And then he went into politics, right? Completely foreign to him. And he went as high as he possibly could in the US as a governor. He couldn't become president because he wasn't born in the country, but he rose to the very top in everything he did. And he actually said time, is one of those important 3 commodities. And he said, if you can't find enough time in the day, then sleep faster. He actually said sleep faster. And I thought that was hilarious. Wow. But he's like, do we really need 8 hours sleep? I mean, you can argue that you could sleep 1 hour less, or you can sleep more productively rather than having long sleeps, you have shorter naps and all these different things. And if you're clever enough, you can figure out a way to create time in the day that otherwise would just escape you. So
right, exactly.
Yeah. What about things like having a vision and goals and things like that, Kay? Because you strike me as someone who you like that challenge, you get bored easily, so you're always looking for change, you're always looking to adapt and create and do new things. Do you set goals to achieve things as well, or do you just try to do something and try and do it really well? How are you?
I have goals. I have my long-term goals that I'm trying to achieve for sure, and always have that in the back of my mind. I mean, I believe in journaling. I believe in vision boards and all of that good stuff, and have my vision board, and that's the first thing I see and the last thing I see when I go back to bed.
Yep. Same here.
And so, yeah, I totally believe in that. But I also believe that, you know what, things are going to come at you, and just go with the flow. It doesn't have to be a strict regime that you necessarily have to get to your goal, because you need to be able to enjoy life, enjoy the journey.
So true. Yep.
Right? And so, for example, again, the whole podcast thing, that was never one of my goals. That was not my vision. That was an opportunity that's presented to me that came out of the blue. And I'm like, okay, let's go with it. Let's see what happens with this now. I'm not going to say, oh, no, this is not on my list of goals, so I'm not going to do it. No, certain things are presented to you in life for a reason, right? Let's just see how it goes. Let's do it. If it doesn't work out later on, great. It was a great road to be on for, temporarily. Let's move on to something else. And I've done that since I was in my 20s. I didn't have anything planned. I knew what my goal was. And to be fair, my goal was very broad. When people told me, what do you want to be when you're older? I said to them, I want to be rich.
Yeah.
Right? Didn't have no idea how I was going to get there. But I never really worried about what's going to happen next, because I was very good at, I guess, things were presented to me constantly, and therefore I will just go with it, right? Yeah. Let's see what happens here. Let me see what I can learn here. And I'm not going to turn anything away. As long as it doesn't harm me or harm anybody else, why would I?
So you've got a very open-minded mindset. So if there's an opportunity that comes by, or someone shares something with you, you look at it, you'll consider it. You don't block things out based on other people's opinions or negative sentiment out there. You're very independent in the way you look at things, right?
Definitely, you have to be, because again, you don't know what's going to transpire from it. It could be something amazing. It could be that one thing that makes you $1 million.
Sure.
Right?
Exactly.
And so why would you block things out? No, have your vision, your focus, and get clarity as to what your end goal is. But then enjoy the journey as you go through it, because again, you never know what's going to come out of it.
No, 100%. Really, really good tips over there. Just because it doesn't work for someone else doesn't mean it can't work for you. I had a lot of people who say, "Oh, I don't think I'll do that. I read it doesn't work, or I heard it doesn't work." I mean, that's just self-defeating. So I like what you said, which is just keep an open mind, try it, because you never know what might actually be the thing that turns around and could make you $1 million if that's the sort of thing you're looking at doing. But otherwise, it could open up doors for you. So that's actually really, really awesome. Right. Kay, now when we get to this point in the podcast, I could talk to you all day, by the way, because this is actually interesting stuff. So we play a game with our guests called Rapid Response, and it's really just kind of quick questions that I shoot at our guests, and just to see how you think and what comes to mind straight away. So are you happy to play with us?
Oh yeah, let's do it. Sounds fun.
Okay, so what is your favorite mode of learning? How do you like to learn?
I'm a visual person, so I love videos. I don't like reading things. It takes too much time. YouTube is where I go. I need videos, visual person, so anything like that, that's how I will learn.
Awesome. Now, we talked about some of our mentors and people that have helped us and things like that. Is there any kind of model or hero, role model of yours that you'd like to call out that's inspired you? You can have more than one.
Oh my God, so my current mentor, Timothy R. Johnson, he's very raw, very real. Also like Grant Cardone, he doesn't mess around either.
No, he doesn't.
One of my favorites, he's actually inspired me with the TV program that he did very recently. Oh my God, what was it called? Oh, I've totally lost it. I've completely forgot what it's called. But basically, he was thrown in the middle of nowhere, was given $100 in a truck, and was told that he's got 90 days to build a $1 million company.
I heard it. I think it was Undercover Billionaire.
That's the one. Yes. I watched that, and so many ideas came from that. He ended up building a $5.5 million company within 90 days. I'm like, holy crap. And all he had was a truck and a $100 bill.
I remember that. I actually do remember. Fantastic.
So he's one of my favorites as well.
Great. Excellent. Now, we talked about a couple of quotes in the course of our chat. Is there one that really stands out for you that you'd like to call out? It can even be your own quote if you want to shout that out.
Yes. Oh my God. So one of my main quotes, and I put it all on my website and social media, things like that, is everyone must choose one of two pains: the pain of discipline or the pain of regret.
Very good. I love that one. That's actually really good. That's excellent. I noticed that you do some work with, what was it, Bali Wise or something like that as one of the charities you support or institutions that you support?
Yeah, that was a charity that I was working with. Unfortunately, due to office politics, I'm no longer working with them. But the time that I did have with them, it was amazing. It was working with young women that, helping them realize that the skills that they already have, you can actually monetize it. And so building a better life for them and their families, with the skills that they already have. For example, there was one young lady I remember, and we had scraps of materials and we were going to chuck away. And she's like, no, don't chuck that away. I can make something out of that. Yeah. And I'm like, really? They're just scraps of material. Yeah. And she went away and she came back and, oh my goodness, she made dog mats of these scraps of materials just by tying them up together. Like, they look really good. And the thing is, in Bali, in Indonesia, everybody has dogs.
Yes.
Everyone has dogs, right? So she would have made a killing just selling these dog mats to local people, right? Yeah. So it was simple things like that, getting creative again, thinking outside the box, and just being able to monetize the skills that you have. So it was amazing to work with these young women.
No, that's fantastic. And is there a charity or a cause that you support right now, or that you'd like to just call out? Yep.
Do you know what? I don't have one in particular. I'm actually trying to narrow the charities down. I've got like so many at the moment.
Yeah.
But I am narrowing it down. I want to, support a particular charity, but yeah, I guess that's going to take a little bit more time.
That's totally fine. Yeah, I mean, you've got plenty of time, and I think it'll come to you just like, a calling, right? You'll know when it's the right one. Okay, now, anything quirky that you would like to share with our audience that they don't know about you? So we know you're an MMA fighter, and not to mess with you. What else do we need to know about you, or that you'd like to share?
Oh my goodness. What else about me? Oh, I used to do, I love heights. I love heights, right? So I like the whole skydiving. I like rock climbing.
Cool.
Getting a harness. I guess I like to live on the edge a little bit, right? And I like the adrenaline pumping. So anything that gets the adrenaline pumping, I'm like, I'm there, I'll do it. Right? I can see why you adrenaline junkie.
I can see why you joined the police force. That was probably like you having a break. Like doing something tame.
Do you know what? When I applied for the police force, I did it as a joke. I didn't think I'd get in.
Yeah.
And as it happened, like every stage I went through, I passed, and all of a sudden I was getting suited and booted for a uniform. I'm like, okay, I guess this is what I'm doing now.
That's actually really cool. That in itself is a good story. So look, that's really great. Thanks for sharing those little bits about you that we might not have known. And I guess as we wrap up, Kay, like you're doing some great work at the moment with Uncensored Society. So I think I read somewhere you're even potentially writing a second book now that you're considering making into a movie or something. Is that like a thought that's happening?
Yeah, that's right. Oh my. Yeah, so I am writing a book. I haven't really kind of mentioned that to anybody as of yet, but it will be transferred into a movie at some point. But that might take a little time, waiting for the flight restrictions to kind of be lifted, because the production team are actually based in the US. So as soon as all of that's been done, we'll get that sorted and up and running as well. But that I will definitely let you know the details once that's all been sorted and the release date comes out.
That's exciting. That's really exciting. Well, if you've got front row seats in there, like I'd like to book a spot to be at the premiere.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
I definitely will let you know about that.
Cool. So that's really great. I think you're doing some amazing work. I mean, on the short time that you've been on this planet, with the amount of things you've done, people would probably assume you're like 75, but you've done it in very quick time, and you've got so much more to give and do. And I like the space that you come from, which is very inspiring and empowering, and all about just helping other people like do better in their lives, which is kind of where I'm coming from as well. So that's fantastic. How can people get in touch with you, Kay, if they either want to reach you personally or your book, your programs, or anything like that, your website? Like, what's the best way for them to reach you?
The best way is really getting onto my website, www.uncensoredsociety.com. On there, you can either shoot me an email. You can also contact me through my social media. All the links are through my website. That will be the best way to contact me for sure. And in fact, before we come to an end, Gavin, would it be okay for me to give your guest a free gift?
100%. Yes, I was going to ask you, is there anything else you'd like to share or give, any tips? But by all means.
Awesome. So I've got this mini program on my website, again, www.uncensoredsociety.com, and it really helps you go from being busy to being productive. And the example that I gave to you earlier regards to, making sure you know what your long-term goals are, short-term goals are, where you're actually spending your time, being aware of what your habits are, which ones are serving you, which ones won't. This mini program will actually help you uncover all of that. And so if anyone is stuck or anyone is kind of finding that, they're overwhelmed or they don't have the time, go ahead, download this mini program, because it will put everything into perspective for you, and it will help you gain clarity and, get clear as to where your focus needs to be and where your focus is right now.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that's wonderful. We'll put the link in there when we do the notes and everything. And that's great. Thank you for sharing that gift with our audience. And Kay, thank you for sharing your time with us. And I really enjoyed our chat. We might get to talk to you in the not too far future again to see where you're headed and how things are going for you. But thanks once again for being our guest.
Awesome. Thank you, Gavin, for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Have a great day. Thanks, Kay.
See you later.
Bye. If you like this podcast and would like to understand a little bit more about what was just discussed, then you're in luck. Simply head over to breakfreefromcorporate.com and we have a fantastic bonus gift waiting for you to download. All we ask in return is that you leave us a review on iTunes and or Stitcher, whichever you use. And lastly, help us share this podcast around with your friends, your colleagues through Facebook, Twitter, Google+, or LinkedIn. We truly appreciate all your support, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode of Break Free from Corporate. Once again, to access previous and all future episodes, visit breakfreefromcorporate.com and subscribe today.